Why, hello, Renee.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Long time no chat.
I know, I know.
It has
And
been a minute.
it has been a minute for sure.
Yeah.
Um, for you guys, it's like we never left. But
Yeah. Right.
yeah, all right.
I mean, we
Um,
did we did do a live, which I am so proud of us
that's
for going
true.
live. Like that was
Yeah.
super exciting.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I forgot. Honestly, I feel so much has happened since then.
Yeah. hmm
Yeah.
Oh my
Oh,
gosh, so much has happened. It was literally a week ago, right? Like that we did that live. Let me just double
I
check
was gonna say,
before.
can you look?
Yeah.
Because I
I'm
honestly,
gonna
it
I'm
feels
gonna
like
take
it's
a
been
look.
a year.
Let's see. Let's go to the YouTubes. We are NSFW,
Yeah, what are we? Yeah.
right? So let's see. 13 days ago.
Seriously? Think
It was
about how much
13
has
days
happened in
ago.
13 days.
That is crazy. So it's been 2 weeks. It wasn't 1 week. It's been
Yeah,
almost
okay.
2 weeks.
Fair enough.
But Jeezy crazy. Yeah. Like in the span of 2 weeks, like it's not even just, oh, there's all this stuff going on. It's like the world changed multiple times.
Yeah. Yeah, it did. Yeah.
Crazy, crazy stuff. Yeah.
It's an
So
exciting time. It's an exciting time too.
it
So,
is
yeah.
exciting or interesting, like which
Well, both. I
both.
mean, it's exciting, it's interesting. Well, I mean, here in the US, we have what is it, like 105 days until the election or something?
Oh my gosh, are we in the getting close to less than 100 days countdown already?
How
Is
many
that
days
real? Let's see. We're in
until
July. We're about to
election
go into
day?
August, September, October, November. Oh yeah.
Let me look. Hold on. There's an election clock. There's an election clock. We're 102 days, 11 hours, 23 minutes, and 37 seconds.
102 days. Okay. Okay, I will say this. I am
But
so excited to vote for the first time in a
yes,
national
yes, I'm so
arena because
happy.
I voted locally, and so that was an experience. That was a fun experience. Like we may have talked about this before, but like before I went to vote for the local elections, my husband and I sat down and we went through all of the different propositions and kind of read like the pros and cons of each. So
Did
not
you? That's
necessarily
fun.
we yeah, so we
Yeah.
I mean he wanted to make sure that I had the full experience of this is what you're voting for. And this is how it can be written in a tricky way where you understand it to be one way, but really it's another way. So that's why you have to like read closely. And whenever I share this story about how my husband, helped basically give me homework before I voted, everybody's like, that's a lot of work that you put into just to vote locally. And it's like, but isn't that the point? Like the point is to
Yes.
be
Yes.
well informed of what you're voting on, because if it's going, especially in the local elections, right? Because that affects you, that affects us directly. Like whatever I vote for or against is going to affect me in some way, shape, or form. So yeah, I want to know and have accurate information as to what it is I'm saying yes or no to.
Well, I think, and we talked about this before, if I had to take the citizenship test that you took, I would have failed. I take for granted.
I
I
don't
was
think you would
born
have failed.
here.
I think you would have been
I'm
fine.
pretty sure I'd have bombed it.
So
After
some of them may have made you like think about it for a second, but I
yeah.
think you especially you would have been fine.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. But I think that a lot of us take all of this for granted. And so when you
Yeah,
become a new citizen, you're very excited. You've gotten pumped up through the process, right? You've had
yeah,
to take the exam, you've become very intimate with all of the political stuff that matters and the
right.
history and all this stuff. So the first time you get to vote, you're pumped. It's not
Yeah.
like, oh crap, I got to go vote. I wish that everybody would get this excited about voting. But it's really exciting. And so this will be your first national election.
Yes, yes, it is.
And that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Um, it's I don't know how much we want to go into that on here. But it's a
I was gonna say we could deep dive into that like as a separate
sure, but
episode.
it's a big year for it.
Yeah.
And so this is a really exciting time to have your
Mhm.
first election. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Yep.
yeah, it's good. I'm happy for you. I'm so excited. I have
Thank you.
another friend that is trying to get her citizenship right now.
Uh-huh.
And she's really bummed because she said basically she messaged me the other day and said she's like, I just don't think I'm gonna get it. She's been trying forever. It's just going really slow for her.
Oh
Um,
no, why is
I
that?
know. I don't know. I'm not sure. But she said, I just don't think it's going to happen in time to vote. And she's so politically engaged in US
Yeah.
politics because she's been here most of her life. She's British. And so, anyway, she's really bummed because she really, really wants to vote in this national election, but it doesn't look like her citizenship is going to come through in time. So she's so sad because,
Oh,
yeah.
well, I mean, so I thought that my citizenship was going to take a while. Like I don't know if you remember, but when I originally submitted my application, it said like it told me processing time was like 17 months. And I was
Holy
like,
crap.
okay, well, 17 months is great, you know. I guess there's a huge backlog or whatever. But it was like a week later, or not even a week later, it was a few days later, I received a notification um, saying that my citizenship test, my interview
Mhm.
would be scheduled within like 3 weeks or something like that. And I was
Okay.
like, okay, fantastic. And then after the citizen, like after all of that, basically it went from like 17 months and then it went down to like 12 months and then it went down to 8 months and then it went
Mm,
to here is the date of your oath swearing
mhm.
appointment. And I was like, I thought it was supposed to be 17 months. I mean, I'm not complaining, but you know, they give you a preliminary like
Sure. Maybe that's what's happening with
insane
her. I don't
processing
know.
time.
I'll see her
Yeah.
on Saturday, so I'll ask her.
Yeah. So
Um,
just let her know to have
yeah,
faith because that's what
I
happened to me.
will.
Like I thought it was going to be 17 months and I was like, well, I guess, you know, whatever, it's fine because it automatically extended my green card, which was my main concern, you know, because I was so close to the
Did you not? I
expiration.
get confused on this. So you didn't have a permanent green card?
There's no so
Because
uh
Joanna, my friend, she has I guess a permanent green card. It'll never expire, her green card.
yeah, so
But she said it's an old one.
your permanent residency doesn't expire, but your green card expires, like the card itself, your identification. It's like your driver's license,
Yeah,
right?
but she has one that doesn't expire. That's what she
Yeah,
was saying.
so I can't remember what year it was, but there was a point where they stopped giving the green cards that were perpetual and then they
Yeah.
turned it into 10 years. So
Okay.
you had to renew it every 10 years. Now, what happens if you don't renew it? I mean, really nothing. Like you might get a fine if you were in a situation where you left the country and you were coming back and you didn't have a a valid green card, but your permanent residency, as far as I understood it, your permanent residency itself doesn't get revoked unless you get like deported.
Right. I think she immigrated here with her parents in the 80s, like
Okay, yeah,
that
that
long
makes
ago.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she said that hers is like paper and it's looking pretty old.
Yeah.
And she's
See,
always paranoid when she travels
mine was
back to
all
the
like
UK.
mine was super fancy. It's like that really thick like oh what is it? You know those credit cards that are made with like metal in it?
Oh, wow, yeah.
Okay, so that's what my green card felt like.
Oh,
And then it
wow.
had like on the back, it had like holographic things, which was like
Oh, how
my
fun.
picture ID was like a hologram inside of the back, like metal part. And it was overlaid with the seal of the United States. Like there were a lot of different things that when you looked at it and you
That's
turned it in
awesome.
all different ways, like
Yeah.
you find a new thing each time.
Yeah. Wow, that's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Well, that's neat. Yeah. Well, I'm excited for you. Are you going to vote early? Or are you going to save it for election day?
No, no, no. So we voted early for the local elections, and we'll
Okay.
probably vote early for the national one too, just because I just don't want to. I don't want to. I don't want to get into the on election day standing in line for hours
Oh,
only to
I
have the
know.
polling center
Same.
close.
Same.
Like I see that kind of stuff on the news and like in newspapers and things like that, and I'm just like, I don't have time for that.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I'm looking it up now to see when is election. What is early voting day?
Yeah, so
Um,
Tuesday, November 5th
okay, good. You
is
found it? Why can't I find it?
well, I'm on the Secretary of State website and they've got like every single date listed on there. So it says the last day to receive ballot by mail is Tuesday, November 5th, which is election day by 7 p.m. Um, but Friday, November 1st is the last day of early voting. First day of early voting by personal appearance is Monday, October 21st.
So October 21st is the first day of early voting?
Early voting by personal appearance.
Yes. Well, we can't,
Yes,
we're too young to mail in vote, right? So,
I think so. Yeah.
yeah, which is
Yeah,
so
you have to
stupid.
have very specific yeah, qualifications to be able to do that.
Well, I want to do it on October 21st then. There you go. I just want to get it out of
Yeah.
the way, get it over with.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Awesome. Well, glad we got that worked out. I should put that on the
I know.
calendar. Um, yeah, I'm pumped. I'm so
So
excited.
that wasn't what we were going to talk about
No,
today,
no,
by
no.
the way.
As a matter of fact, I did say I didn't have anything, but we just had a previous call with a friend of ours, and you told a story that I thought was interesting about losing your phone. But the interesting thing to me about it was most people lose their phone, they panic, they don't have a backup plan. You're like, oh, it's no big deal because I got this and I
Yeah.
got that and I got this. And I'm like, my God, if I lose my phone, that's it. I'm done. I lost my phone. But
Yeah.
you're like, oh, I have this other number. I have this Google thing. I have iMessage. You have so many things going on. It's like you are the most prepared person I know. I swear to God,
No,
for
I'm
digital
glad you
crap.
think so.
Well,
I don't think
yeah.
so.
No, I mean, it was just crazy. So,
Yeah.
um,
So I would love to talk about that too.
yes,
Like
I think it would be worthy.
it segues very well into the topic that I wanted to bring up. So recently I was a camp counselor for a week at a camp for boys with hemophilia. So it is a medical camp and we are there for the full week,
And what
day
is
in,
he?
day out.
Talk about what it is, just in case people don't know what that means.
Okay, so the camp is called Camp Ailihpomeh. So shout out Camp Ailihpomeh. And it is a camp for kids with a bleeding disorder, specifically hemophilia. So
Mhm.
hemophilia is a blood clotting disorder. Basically, they just there's different levels of severity. So if you have severe hemophilia, it means you have less than like 1% factor in your blood. If you're moderate, it's like 1 to 3%. And then if you're mild, it's less than 5%. And the clotting factor is just what helps you stop bleeding, So these kids, they bruise easily, they bleed into their joints. Head injuries are very
Mhm.
dangerous potentially for them. There are certain things like they can't take blood thinners or because they already don't clot. So
Right.
um, things like NSAIDs are not good for them to take because it affects their liver
Really?
and their
Oh
liver. So
no.
hemophilia, the factor is it a protein or the factor element.
I have no idea.
The factor element is produced in the liver. So there is no cure for hemophilia, but there have been instances where, somebody with hemophilia had a liver transplant for a completely different reason, and then they suddenly no longer have hemophilia. since it
Oh,
is,
I didn't know that. That's
yeah, the
interesting.
factor is created in the liver. But, to that point, like who is having elective liver transplants because they have
Right,
hemophilia, like
right, right,
it
right.
has to be a life-threatening thing to even be
Hmm.
put on the transplant list and all that kind of stuff. So
Hmm.
all that to say, it was a complete liver transplant. It wasn't a partial liver transplant that caused their hemophilia to basically be cured or disappear. So the kids at this camp are they range from ages 7 to 17, and so my cabin is always the older kids. They're the 14-year-olds, or not always. Majority of the time, it's the 14-year-olds. And the reason that we consider that the oldest cabin is because when you turn 15, like from 15 to 17, you go into what's called the leadership program. And that is basically to train you to become the next level of leaders, to
Hmm.
become the next counselors in training, so that once you turn 18, you can come back as a counselor and have the confidence and the tools needed to, basically be a mentor to these kids with the same disorder. So it's a
So let
lot of
me ask a
fun.
question. Let me ask a
Sure.
question, just because I can imagine people might be curious about this.
Yeah.
Two questions. One is, how did you get involved in this?
Yeah.
Because we haven't, I don't think you mentioned that.
I
And
don't think so.
two, why do they need a special camp in the first place? Like, why does this exist?
Yeah, so those are two great questions. The
Hmm.
first, so your first question, how did I even get involved with this, is so my husband has hemophilia. He started off as a
Hmm.
camper. He attended when he was 7 years old. He went
Oh,
through the
wow.
leadership
Yeah.
program and he became a counselor. And I mean, like, super kudos to him. He has never missed a year. So
Really?
since he was
Wow.
7 years old, he has attended camp every single year as a
That is so
camper,
awesome.
as a leadership, as a counselor. And
Hmm.
so
Hmm.
yeah, I think, oh, I can't remember. Was it 30? I think we were at third, because he just turned 40. So if he started when he was 7, um, yeah,
33 years. Wow.
33 years every single
Yeah.
year.
Holy crap.
So
That's impressive.
it is impressive. I'm so proud of
Especially with
him.
his schedule.
Yeah,
So,
no, this is his
yeah,
one non-negotiable.
got it.
This is
Got
his
it.
non-negotiable. He has to be able to attend camp. He has to be able to take his
Yeah.
PTO for camp.
Hmm.
Um, so that's how I got involved in it. And I actually didn't start attending as a counselor until after we got married. So we got
Mm.
married in 2009, and my first year as a counselor was in 2010. And actually, he just admitted to me recently, he was like, it actually made him really nervous for me to start attending camp with him, because it's
Why?
like his two worlds were like merging.
Oh, yeah.
So like his hemophilia family and then, me, merging them together was kind of nerve-wracking for him, which I completely understand. But it was
Sure.
just, I thought it was really cute that he just admitted this to me like when we got back. You
Oh,
know,
this trip?
like this trip, yeah.
Oh, that's
So like
hilarious.
last weekend, he was like, the first time you came to camp as a counselor, I was actually really nervous. Like it was really scary for me to combine these two worlds that had always been separate, because these are people that have known me since I was a kid. So
And it normally more often than not impacts boys.
yes. So statistically speaking,
Right.
medical history has always shown that it only affected boys. And once again, to go back to the whole, you know, women or females aren't
Hmm.
taken seriously, or research is not focused on them and things like that. So it turns out, I think it's within the past like 5 or 10 years, they've started to realize that females can have hemophilia. It's not at the
Mm.
same severity. So they don't, it's very rare to see a female with hemophilia in the severe range where it's less than 1% factor levels in their body, or their body produces less than 1% of factor. It's usually more in like the mild to like, 40% or
Right.
whatever. So enough that it'll affect them, but not enough for research to really be
Right.
prioritized in the female healthcare for hemophilia. So
Mm-hmm.
once again, it's only recently that they've started to admit that, okay, females do carry, or females can be symptomatic of hemophilia.
Right.
So our daughters, because it is an X-linked recessive genetic
Mm-hmm.
disorder, um, our daughters are carriers of hemophilia, which means that they're asymptomatic. They don't exhibit any symptoms. They just carry the gene,
Mm-hmm.
which means that if they have kids, there's like a 50-50 chance that their sons will have hemophilia.
Mm-hmm.
And
And that's rough. Yeah,
yeah,
that's rough to know. Yeah.
yeah, it is. It is rough, but that's something that we talked about at camp the during like the oh, what is it? During med notes. So when we were talking to the nurses and things like that, just the advancements in the technology of treatment and medications, it has grown exponentially to the point that like from when I started to now, like this, I've basically been going for what, like 9 years or something like
Mm-hmm.
that. So so from when I started back in 2010 to now, the way that the prophy, which is their prophylaxis, like their medications and how frequently they take it,
Mm-hmm.
um, the whole process has changed so much. So when I first started, every single morning we would take kids, most of them, because majority of them are severe, we would take kids to we call it the quack shack, which is the medical building. So
Yeah.
we take them to the quack shack in
That's
the
funny.
morning to do their prophylaxis, which is, it's an IV injection of factor. And so it would be so busy in the mornings that, you were always trying to get there as early as possible. So sometimes we're taking these kids there at like 6:30 in the morning, just so we could be like the
Dang.
first for
Yeah.
them to get their medication and then come back. And this was every single day. So some of these kids were having prophy twice a day, every day. Some of them were only doing
Wow.
it like 3 times. I say only. Some of them were only doing it 3 times a week, like Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them were only doing it once a week. So
Mm.
it was a very varied um, frequency of medication that they needed to take. And that was back in 2010. So this most recent year, we had two campers that needed to go to
Oh,
look at that.
wow.
Celebrate.
Wow. Look at that.
Yeah. We had two campers that needed to go to the quack shack one time
Okay.
for their medication. That was it. So we went from every single day, twice a day sometimes, that kids needed medication, to these two kids that just needed their medication one time during the week, because that was the once a month that they needed to take
Wow.
their medication. Like,
Yeah,
so amazing, so amazing. And
that's
and
great.
yeah, it is. So that's how I got into it. And
Right.
then your second question was, why do kids like this need a camp
Right.
like this, right? So a lot of the time, like if we're doing a comparison between then and now again,
Yes.
these kids they're in a very protective bubble. There's a lot of things that they can't do. Like there's certain sports they can't play contact sports. So football is completely out of the question. Soccer is questionable. We have kids that, they play baseball, but even that is like they're very limited in the positions that they could play, because of, wear and tear. Like as a pitcher, there's a lot of like shoulder injuries, and
Yeah.
because hemophiliacs bleed into their joints, that's very painful. So if they get a joint
Right.
bleed, then they can't pitch.
Mm-hmm.
And even if they're on the field, like if they're, basemen or out in the outfield or whatever, there is always that potential that they could get hit in the head with the baseball that's going
Yeah.
90 to 100 miles an hour, you know, like, and that could potentially be life threatening to them. So, the sports that they can play are things like swimming. They could be on the swim team because it's
Mm-hmm.
low impact, but it's still like a team thing. Um, and I think that's like the safest sport that they're allowed to play without needing really like
Right.
a doctor to sign off on it. But the reason that they need a camp like this is because being surrounded by other kids who understand what they're going through, who understand the limitations that they
Mm-hmm.
have, you know, who understand what it feels like to constantly be sheltered and then just have a place that is it's a medical facility. Like it's covered, the staff are nurses and doctors and social
Mm-hmm.
workers, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is the safest camp for them to attend where they can just be kids. Like they
Yes.
can just be boys. You know, there's like zip lining, there's ropes course, there's archery, fishing, boats, you know, canoeing, kayaking. Um, they have arts and crafts, they have pottery, like
Mm-hmm.
just all of the things that for the most part, they have an adult that's kind of hovering behind them, constantly saying, "Oh, you need to be careful. Oh, you can't do this. Oh, no, this
Mm-hmm.
is too dangerous." But at this camp, because of the way that it's designed, it's like, these are the activities that you can do. And they're like, "Oh my gosh, I can do archery. Like I'm allowed to do that."
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah.
you know, "Oh, I can go kayaking. Like you're gonna let me get in a kayak in the middle of a lake, you know?" And it's just the joy in their faces is that's the part that like makes it all worthwhile for me. And like I will get sappy and teary about this
Mm-hmm.
because just because like I know the profound impact that it had on my husband,
Mm-hmm.
like attending as a camper, and the fact that, you know, it's a testament to the the imprint that it made on him, you know, that he
Right.
continues to come back as a counselor because he wants the kids to have the same experience and memories that he had as a camper.
Yeah.
And yeah, and just have a place where they're accepted, and it's just what they have isn't a limitation anymore. It's like they talk about it like it's a superpower, you know, like it's just it's so great. And the camp itself is called Camp John Mark. So shout out to Camp John Mark. Um, Camp John Mark hosts these summer camps for different medical disorders all throughout the
Mm.
summer. So
Mm. Okay.
Hemophilia is one week. They have one camp for kids with sickle cell disease.
Okay.
They have a camp for kids with active cancer. They have a camp for kids that are survivors of cancer. They have a camp for Camp Renal is for kidney disease.
Yeah.
Yeah, just all sorts of stuff. So the fact that they have this really safe and like enjoyable place for kids that may not necessarily have a normal
Mm-hmm.
childhood.
Mm-hmm.
It's just I think it's such a beautiful thing. Like I'm a huge supporter of everything that they do.
That's great. Well,
So that was
that's
my
awesome.
that
So
was that
all
was
of
my
that,
thing.
yeah. So all of that to say, going back to the lake,
Uh-huh.
you lost your phone. Yeah.
All of that to say, yeah. So that's the whole hullabaloo. Okay, so Um, I was taking pictures, like I was helping the staff taking pictures of the campers that could go back to their parents so that their parents could like look through albums of what their kids are up to while they're at camp,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I knew going into it, my project was boats. So that meant that I was on a boat, whether it was a canoe or a kayak with camper or campers, plural. I knew that it was a risk taking my phone onto the boats or kayaks, right?
Right.
And so the one day that I decided, you know what, I'm going to take this risk. I have a wet bag that, you know, is on a lanyard around my neck. I can get some like awesome
That's the only
shots.
day you took your
That was
sorry.
the only day that I took my phone out onto the boat. Usually I kept it in my backpack that was on the dock.
That's
Um,
awesome.
but the one day that I was like, you know what, the activity for boats project that day was canoe tipping. So we were going to
Mm,
flip the boat, and then the kids would learn how to flip it back and then get back in. So
hmm.
flip it back without making it full of water and then get back in. So it's a skill building thing. Like that's a
Right.
great skill to learn, right? Like how
Sure.
do you flip a
Absolutely.
canoe back when you're a kid? And and so in my head, I was thinking, oh, I could get some great shots of like the kids tipping out of the boats and then, getting back in and like in the
Hmm.
water.
Hmm.
Like, how cool would those shots be? Like, that was the thought process in my head. And once again, I knew the risk going in, but I was thinking, well, it's in a little like wet bag and it'll float. It's not a big deal if it comes off, you know, if it goes off into the lake, right? So I happened to have one of the younger campers in my canoe. So we were tipping the canoe. So we flipped the canoe, and then he was kind of struggling to get back into the canoe because, they're a little bit deeper.
Hmm.
Um, or the canoes are set a little bit deeper. And, as an 8-year-old kid, you're small, right? So
Yeah.
like as I'm helping him, like I'm pulling the side of the canoe down a little, like we'd already flipped it right side up. By the way, the technique is called the Texas T. So if
Okay.
you are ever interested in looking that up, like go ahead, look up Texas T for when your boat or your canoe or kayak flips. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
And so anyways, I was helping him get back in. And then as I did it, I guess like when I pulled down on the side of the canoe, like the lip, because there's a lip on it
Right.
and
Right.
it kind of like comes out like that. So the edge of it caught on my bag, on my wet phone bag, and I
Hmm.
didn't realize it. And so when I pulled myself up into the canoe, it snapped off my
Hmm.
lanyard.
Hmm.
So the bag snapped off my lanyard. I thought it had caught on my life jacket. But once I got back in the boat, I went to go take a picture of the camper and I was like, oh, well, my phone is gone. And as
Yeah.
I look over the edge, I see the bag like, ooh, going down
Like
into the
almost
depths of
sounds
the
almost
lake.
sounds like a cartoon scene, you know?
Yeah, no, it
Yeah.
totally
Yeah.
was. It was totally a cartoon thing. And then I was like, I waved down because they had two lifeguards on paddles, like paddle boats, out there. And I was like, hey, just so you know, like if you see my phone, like it's in a little bag. If it floats towards you, just grab it. It's mine. And then they were freaking out. And they were like, oh my gosh, we've got to find your phone. I'm like, no, it's totally fine. Like if it floats up, it floats up. If you see it, grab it. It's not a big deal. Um, I felt so bad because I think they were like so stressed out that my phone was in
Oh,
the
that's
in
so
the
cute.
lake
Yeah.
in the water, and I was like, it's no big deal. I swear. Now, granted, these are college students,
Yeah.
so I can see how for them, like losing your phone is like the end of the world. But I am a
Right.
geriatric millennial, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I had to live through like waiting until 9 p.m. before I could make phone calls because, you got charged per minute. And then when text
Yeah.
messages became a thing, you only, your packages started off at either 100 text messages a month or 500. And if you had the 500 text messages a month, like you were super cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, so like not a huge deal. And to your point, Renee,
But
um,
also, right.
but also to your point, yes, my entire existence is accessible on my phone,
Hmm.
meaning, communication with clients, like video editing, um, documents, like everything is on my phone. I do have everything backed up
Hmm.
constantly. So I
Right.
have I have multiple backups for like pictures or downloads. So any files that like end up on my phone, they get
Hmm.
backed up to multiple cloud services.
Right.
My phone itself does a full system backup. I think it's like it takes a snapshot like I think I have set up for like every 2 hours.
Right.
Um, so once again, I was not super
But you also apparently have
concerned.
another phone number, a Google phone number. You have
Yes.
iMessage. So you were never even, plus I forgot your husband's at camp with you.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So like, you're never too far from your kids.
Right.
Yeah, it was like a perfect ideal situation for losing your phone. But the
Yeah.
interesting part was the fact to me that you had iMessage and Google. So it was like you were still so highly connected,
Yeah.
right? And I just think
Yeah.
that's interesting because to your point, if you think about how I've started I started realizing that my watch, right? Do you have a watch? Do you
I
have a
do.
Google
Well, I have a
watch?
Garmin.
Yeah, Garmin. Okay. All the notifications. I realize sometimes I can go very long without ever using my phone because all of the
Uh-huh.
notifications come to my watch, which is also highly annoying because it's hard to disconnect.
Yeah.
Because if you turn it off on your watch, like focus mode on an iPhone, it turns it on focus mode on your iPhone too, which is not really what I wanted. And so
Mm-hmm.
it like becomes so complicated, we're all so highly connected. So when you were telling this story earlier, I just realized how you're even next level connected. Um, and I just think that's really interesting. So you had your Garmin. You get text messages on your Garmin?
So I get notifications. Basically, the Garmin, it's not your typical smartwatch, if that makes any
Okay.
sense. So
Yeah.
basically, like I can't make calls or text messages from my watch. It'll just
Hmm.
let me know what my phone is saying. So I did that on purpose, by the way, because the thought of we already have this attached to our see, I just picked it
Yeah.
up. I knew exactly where
Yeah.
it was. We're already so attached to this device. I was feeling trapped by the thought that if I have it like as a watch and it can do everything that my phone can do, then I feel obligated to always
Right.
be accessible. And I'm like,
It's
I would
true.
rather not.
It's good and it's bad.
Yes.
Right? Like, my biggest fear is that something happens to my mom or my kid, and I don't
Right.
know because that happened to me with my dad when my dad died, and I
Yeah.
missed his call, the last call, I missed it. And so that is stuck with me, right?
Yeah.
But at the
Yeah.
same time, now I can't make it stop. Like literally, one of my goals this weekend, because I'm going away for the weekend, is to figure out how to turn off so many of the notifications on my watch because now I feel so overly connected that
Yeah.
it's just really become annoying. Sometimes I love wearing the watch because I like to get my points for my steps and
Right. Right.
all of that athletic stuff. Not that I'm an athlete in any way, but those kind of health metrics, right?
Yeah. But I mean,
Um,
that is a real problem. Like
yeah.
the super connectivity of society right now, like that
Hmm.
is a huge, huge problem. Just to kind of go back to, when Houston was hit by Hurricane Beryl,
Yeah.
one of the things that made it so nerve-wracking for me and so anxiety inducing was the fact that this was the first hurricane that we've been through where we had no cell phone signal. Like we could not get
Yeah.
text messages in and out to friends. Like it was so
Yeah.
sporadic. There were zero phone calls. Like we tried to make phone calls. You could not make a phone call. So you just had to pray that these text messages would like make it out to the people that you were trying to reach out to. And also just the fact that we couldn't even pull up weather the weather radar
Yeah. Yeah.
information. So it's like, okay, well, is the hurricane getting bigger, stronger? Is it weakening? Like what is happening? We had zero information. And that was probably the scariest
Mm.
and most eye-opening
Yeah.
scenario for me because, it in a world where you're so used to immediate information and data, when you don't have access to it at all, it's like, and you're in the dark and you're living in the stone ages, is what it felt like. It's almost like, how did we live before not knowing
You're
everything?
right. I mean, we just talked about this. It might have even been the last episode or the episode before last,
Yeah.
where you were walking me through the tornado that came here.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
because I was so disconnected. And it is
Right.
scary. And we back then we used to have, before we had weather radios, right?
Yeah.
Some people did. And I actually have a weather radio somewhere in one of our closets, but it never works very well. And so I just don't even use it. And I guess
Yeah.
that would be a solution. But we've become so reliant on these devices
Mm-hmm.
that now we're not set up for a different
Yeah.
solution.
Yeah.
Which I think is particularly interesting, how deeply connected we are. By the way, since then, since you've been gone, I signed up and got cable again. Um,
What?
I know, well, politics. Couldn't go without it. Had to see it.
Okay, but still, like,
Well,
what?
but I signed up with YouTube TV.
Okay.
So and that's been really an interesting experience. Um, but so not traditional cable, just YouTube TV.
Uh-huh. Okay.
And so, yeah.
All
Um,
right. All
I
right.
couldn't I couldn't go without it. I needed to
Yeah.
see things. And so I signed up. Um,
Okay.
yeah. So there you go.
Well, that's
I told Andy I would
interesting.
turn it back off again on January 20th.
I was about to ask, is this just a temporary
Yeah,
like
just
sign up? Okay.
temporary. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
Um,
right.
so
Well,
as
then
long
I
as
guess
January
that's
20th goes
okay.
okay, I'll turn it off in January. So
Right.
yeah.
Oh my
Um,
goodness.
yeah.
Now, I will say that was definitely something that when we had the opportunity to like turn on our generator and get power back, we
Which is
do
so
have
cool that you have one of those.
yeah, so
Yeah.
we have rabbit ears, so we
Oh,
could get
okay.
over the air
Yeah.
like the local over the air stations, and that was what helped us get more information on what was happening like with the storm and stuff like that. But yeah, that hyper connectivity, um it's a like at this point it's not even a oh, them kids, like the kids, it's always the kids, right? It's always
Yeah,
that
no,
young
I am
generation. No,
deeply
it's the
connected.
world. It's not even
Yeah.
American society. It is the entire world culture is
Mm-hmm.
immediate access to information, hyperconnectivity, and yeah, like not having it, it's almost like, you think about the places that don't have clean water and you're like, why? Why don't
Yeah,
you have clean water? And
I
but
know.
instead it's why don't you have access to the internet?
I know. I know. It's weird. It's like
Hmm.
I and it's funny because I know that personally I'm too connected at this point.
Yeah.
I've become too deeply immersed. And what I mean by that is it's become such a habit to pick up the phone that I don't even think about it anymore. I just pick
Oh
it
my
up.
gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And so I'm like, oh my God, this has gotten just ridiculous. So yeah.
Right, right, yeah.
It's just a habit.
Hmm.
It's just like fidgeting. Honestly, it's kind of the
Yep.
same. So yeah, I think that's interesting.
Yeah.
So what else were we gonna talk about?
Well, all of that, like the whole my phone connection, having things backed up and the hyper connectivity, it all ties back to what everybody has probably already at least heard about, which is the CrowdStrike
Oh, that's right. Yes, yes.
outage.
I
Yeah,
know
and how
nothing other than it was a thing that happened.
yeah, and so it affected, I mean, it affected everything around the world, right? Like you hear it from the smallest like mom and pop companies. So like the small businesses were affected, but then like airlines were affected too. So like,
Right.
I think Delta is still trying to
They're still
recover from
unraveling, right?
yeah, yeah, there's still I think it was yesterday I was watching this report that was showing that there were for that day there were like 1,700 um delayed flights, and then there were I mean, like just thinking about the fact that these are thousands, like the number is in the thousands of delayed, canceled,
Yeah.
lost luggage, rebooked customers. Like just thinking about flights on their own. So if they're saying 1,700 flights were delayed, every flight, how many people are on that flight that are now delayed and stuck in whatever airport they're in? And it's not like they just have one Delta flight going out, like it's
Yeah.
multiple. So
Right.
the sheer number of people affected by this has been insane. So my understanding of what happened was that CrowdStrike is a like it's a platform that works with Microsoft. And
Okay.
what had happened was there was an update that was pushed out, and it either had the wrong code in it, or there was like there was a bug or something like that. But what it did, because of that error, it gives you on a Windows computer, it gives you the blue screen of death.
Right.
And we all have had that experience,
Oh
right? You get
yeah.
the blue
Oh
screen
yeah.
of death and it's like, "Oh my gosh, this is going to turn on. Like if I restart it or do a hard shutdown, will I continue to get the blue screen of death, or will it just like magically fix itself, right?" And so it was going in a constant like restart loop. So all of the companies that had this particular software on their computers, on their Windows computers, because it didn't affect Mac, it was Windows computers, it would cycle through the blue screen of death. And so that means you can't access anything on the hard drive. You cannot get into the system. You cannot access your software, your programs, and things like that. And that is not good news for, you know, medical
So
facilities
so it
or
wasn't something that
clients.
it wasn't like you had to go do an update on your computer and then something went wrong. This is just something that just happened.
Well, it was an update. So an update was pushed through, and then the update affected the Windows
But here's what
workstation.
I mean. Like I think right now on my Mac that there's an update waiting, but I have to say
Uh-huh.
yes, do the update.
Right.
But did people choose to do the update?
Yeah. So I
Okay.
think this is one of those automatic updates.
Ah, yes. Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I meant.
Like
Yeah.
it's bundled together with everything. Like when I worked in corporate healthcare, one of the things that we always um turned off automatic updates, specifically for the reason that sometimes an update would go through and it was always like a K something update, right? But there would be a specific update that goes through, and then all of a sudden we couldn't open our EMR. And so there was like a conflict in the
I see. Yeah.
communication of it or whatever. So what we would have to do is we would have a quarantined computer. So one computer that whenever Windows is like, we're releasing an update, we're like, okay, we're gonna try it on this computer that, it's just got it's part of the network, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this specific computer is also isolated enough that we can screw it up
Mm-hmm.
and it's fine.
Right.
So we would test it on the quarantine computer, and if it broke our EMR, then we knew not to push that update. We knew that we could write a script that'll push through all of the updates except for the one that broke it. Because that's the other thing that you could do. You can specify, yes, I want all of it, or no, I only want these updates. Do not do this one. So we could
Mm-hmm.
get really specific with it. And I think that's what happened with this CrowdStrike thing. Now, if there are absolutely people that know the technicalities and they know
Oh,
more
sure.
details than
Yeah.
I do. I'm just going off of like what I understood based on my preliminary you know, just kind of looking it up while I was at camp. Because this all happened while I was at camp, and I was just trying to get information to make sure that it didn't affect my clients, because like what a pickle to be in, that I'm in a place where data is not easily accessible, and then all of a sudden my healthcare clients, their systems go down, or any of my other small business clients, like their systems are affected. Like I did not want to have to be dealing with that, and taking away from the camp experience because
Yeah.
of something that I knew nothing about.
Right.
So,
Well,
yeah. So all of that to say, it's a stark reminder of how dependent we are on these
exactly.
systems that we have built working.
Well,
And
it's
when they
true.
don't work, society doesn't work.
In this book that I really want you to read, the nuclear war book,
Uh-huh.
um, an EMP goes off over the
You
United
text it to
States.
me, right?
What's that?
You text it to me, right?
Gosh, I think so. Um, but an EMP goes off over the United States, the entire United States. And the devastation of that is almost as bad as the devastation of the nuclear war. Um,
Jeez.
yeah, it was surprising um how what impact that has on our society now. It's pretty
Yeah.
wild.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild, honestly. I'm sending you the link
Yeah.
now.
I was gonna say, can you send me the link? Because I'm
Yeah.
looking for the message that you sent me about it, but we text each other about all sorts of things.
I know.
So
It's
I'm
like
like,
if you don't
I
click
don't
on
know
it right
what to
away,
look for.
there you go.
Thanks.
Yeah. So, but the EMP, the impact of our electronics dying on us as a nation is as devastating as anything else that could possibly happen because our cars wouldn't start.
Mm-hmm.
Our our dependency on the internet and computers is, well, I mean, it would be like going back to the 1800s or something.
Right.
Nothing would
Yeah.
work. Nothing. We're
Yeah.
fortunate that this thing was fixed so quickly and that it
Well,
didn't have a bigger impact.
well,
And
are you
also
talking about
go Apple, right? So
Well, okay, so with the CrowdStrike thing, yeah, the do you know what the fix was?
no.
The fix is updating each individual computer. So
What?
the fact that these IT companies are, like remote access is it's pretty much become the norm, right? Like these
Sure.
you partner with an IT support company based out of a different state, a different country, and they can remote in and troubleshoot or whatever. So
Yeah.
the fix had to be physical. Like they had to be physically in front of the computer to be able to do it
No.
because
No.
because it wouldn't even let you load so that it could connect to the internet. So somebody had to be in front of the computer to do whatever keystrokes need to be done to open that back door where they can reboot it like in safe mode or whatever. So they needed to physically touch every single computer that was affected by this. This is the reason why it has taken so long to fix because, some of these companies, they have, it's not just like, oh, there's 10 or 15, even 10 or 15 computers having to touch every single one. And you have one IT person going in and doing that. Like I know firsthand that that is incredibly time consuming. So even if you have a team of IT professionals, right? The fact that they had to physically be in front of the computers that were affected. That's a huge time currency that they're using.
I'm
You
still
have thoughts, I
speechless.
can
Yeah,
tell.
no, I'm speechless. I'm just wow. What
Yeah.
if this had happened on election day?
That would have put like the conspiracy theories or the conspiracy theorists into
Yeah.
a tizzy. Like that would have been a conspiracy theorist field day if this happened on election day or even like close to election, right? If it was remotely connected to anything political. And that's the other thing. So the conspiracy theorists have been coming out and saying,
Oh,
"Oh,
really? I
this
love a good conspiracy theory.
well, yeah, so they're all saying, "Oh yeah, they're saying that this was a bug. This was an error in the code or whatever, but what they're trying to cover up is that the Russians and the Chinese have like created this like cyber attack on the United States and da 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 da." And
Oh,
it's like, "Yeah, but
oh.
it's not just the United States that was affected." Like
Yeah.
Microsoft, anywhere Microsoft is, like, yes, Microsoft is a US based company, but I mean, Microsoft is worldwide?
Interesting. Well,
Yeah.
that's interesting. Yeah. No, I didn't know much about it because I have a Mac and I didn't care. Um, I'm just being honest. It was just one
Yeah.
of those blips. The funniest thing to me about it was, the spear in Vegas.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It had the blue screen on it, and it was really funny looking.
Did
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, I love that spear, by the way. Um, I just think it's so cool. Um, well, that's
I'm
interesting
looking it up because
because
I'm like, wait a second. Sphere Las Vegas, like blue screen, right? Oh,
yeah, yeah,
look
yeah,
at that blue screen.
yeah,
Oh, it totally did.
yeah. Isn't that fun? I think it was on purpose, but
It looks like it was on purpose. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Oh, that's so funny.
yeah. That was pretty cool. Well, we're fortunate. It makes me think about that. Have you seen the TV show Mr. Robot?
No.
Oh, okay. So Mr. Robot, hold on, let me see. The plot of Mr. Robot. So Mr. Robot, essentially, it was about some hackers that wanted to reset the world in a lot of ways. So what they decided to do was they did this. I'm going to screw this all up, but for the sake of conversation, it's fine.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, they reset all debt. So suddenly, no one had debt. All the debts were
Okay.
paid for, and all of them, everything with finances were reset. And the banks lost all of their history.
Okay.
So, on one hand, that seems so awesome, right? But if suddenly, since it lost all the history, let's say, like you and I both have mortgages, unless you've paid yours off, I have a mortgage. And
No, we have a mortgage.
yeah, okay. I just rooting for you. Um,
Thanks.
but yeah. Um, but we have a mortgage. So if suddenly your mortgage disappears, it's just gone, the bank can't tell if you paid it off or if you went into collections, right? They don't know.
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
So essentially, they wiped out all debt, and it's about all of the chaos that ensues. So be careful what you ask for, all right?
Yeah.
And what happens to society and to jobs and everything. And it's all about what the consequences of that whole thing are. Um,
Interesting.
yeah, it's a very dark show,
Yeah.
because there's a lot going on. But it's a fascinating show. And
And it's a series?
it's a series. Yeah, yeah, you can watch it on Amazon Prime, I think.
Okay, I'm
Um,
gonna have to look that up.
yeah, it's
Is it
really
it's not animated, right?
no, God, no. I would never watch an
It's live
animated
action?
stuff.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, no, it's live action. Um, but the whole thing is just about hackers resetting the world. And I think it all stemmed from Anonymous. And
Oh, yeah.
remember the Wall Street what was that
Hmm.
group called? The Wall Street group. After the financial crisis in 2008.
Like
Um
Wall Street Bets?
no, 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 no.
I keep kicking my desk, by the way, and it's like shaking everything.
Oh, is it?
So there's a Wall Street group you're talking about?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, Occupy Wall Street.
Oh, okay. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I think that's okay. I think it all kind of stemmed from that concept. But anyway, you should watch it. I think you would really like it because
Okay.
it's fascinating, especially the first season when you're like, whoa, what?
Okay.
Yeah. But regardless, our infrastructure is so fragile, and most of us
Hmm.
don't have a clue. Like the internet, the functioning aspects of the internet are run by volunteers, right?
Right.
And I try not to spend too much time thinking about that
Hmm.
because that is just terrifying. Like,
Yeah.
um, when you start getting deep into how the internet actually works, which I know very little about it, but
Yeah.
it's a little bizarre.
Scary.
Yeah. And yet we have all of this built on top of it.
Yep.
and it gets pretty weird to think about how
Mm-hmm.
fragile and just one simple thing can crash so much
Yeah.
now in our society. And yeah, Mr. Robot, highly recommend it. Really good
Okay.
show. Um, it'll make you think about things that you don't normally think
Okay.
about. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I'm super intrigued. So I've already I downloaded purchased on Kindle the book that you recommended.
Oh, good.
So
Annie
I'm gonna
Jacobsen.
start
Yeah.
reading. Yeah, I'm gonna start reading that, and then maybe later today I'll watch the first episode. Um and I'll text you and let you know
So let's talk
my
about the book.
feedback.
Since you bought it, let's talk about it for just a minute.
Sure.
Um, so it's one of the most interesting books I've ever read for so many reasons. But one of them
Hmm.
is she is a reporter who wrote this book. I think she's a reporter. She's a journalist and she wrote this book. But the beginning, she wanted to understand how functionally nuclear war works. Okay.
Okay.
And so she started researching the technicalities of like somebody is sending a nuclear thing at us. What happens? What happens there? What happens here? Like step by step action of
Hmm.
how it all happens and how it's designed to happen and how our system is set up and how
Yeah.
other nations' systems are set up and all these technicalities, which is very dry, dense stuff.
Right,
But she
right.
wanted to explain the implications of it. So she took all of this the what is it? Oh, Freedom of Information Act, right? And she
Mm-hmm.
interviewed a whole bunch of military people and retired and current, and she had all this access. So she had all this really dense, dry information. So what
Yeah.
she decided to do was in the beginning, she talks about this dense, dry information, but then as you get into the book, she creates a fictional scenario. So it goes from a dense, dry nonfiction book to a fictional story that is purely based upon the facts that she researched. So, in order to explain
Oh,
how this would all happen, she creates a fictional scenario. That's why it's called Nuclear War, a Scenario.
yeah.
Because, so I've never read a book like this.
Yeah, that's
And then you'll
so
be in the middle,
interesting.
and you'll be in the middle of the fictional story, and it'll stop, and there'll be a few pages explaining the the factual
What?
stuff
Oh,
behind the fictional stuff.
okay. I love that already.
Yeah,
Because
it's unlike
that's the
anything I've
kind of
ever
stuff
read
that,
before.
yeah, that's how my brain works. Like I
Right.
love reading fiction, but if it's a fiction story that's based in either scientific fact or possible scientific fact, you know, I always pause and then I'm like, well, I want to read a little bit more about like the reality of this, like the
Right,
the real
exactly. And
science
that's
or whatever.
that's
But
exactly what this
it's
book
part of
is.
it. So this
It's
is,
part of the book.
oh,
And
that's
so I've never
amazing.
seen
Okay.
anything like it. And
Yeah.
and so it's just I can't wait for you to read it. I think you'll feel the same way I do because even if the topic is terrifying and scary,
Yeah,
but the
sure.
structure of the book is I've never read a book like it. I mean the only thing I could think of when you were telling me the story earlier about the CIA friend, FBI friend,
FBI.
FBI friend, and you were screenshotting that book. And I
Uh-huh.
was like, okay, you've got to read this book because
Yeah.
yeah. Um,
And just for everybody else, now that they're all like, what do you mean CIA, FBI? So there is like me and my husband have a friend who is in the FBI, and she shared a book with me called Dawn of the Code War. And it is about the cybersecurity attacks from Russia, China, all that kind of stuff. Super, super interesting, but it's a very dense book. Um, it's nonfiction. Like this is real. This is what happened. It is declassified information, so that's why a book was able to be written about it. But it's incredibly fascinating to read, essentially how antiquated like our US government systems are compared to
oh,
other
why do you
countries.
read this?
Yeah, and how easy or not even easy, because there's a difference between easy and simple, right? But like how simple it is to just be like, oh, well, we're going to create this cyber attack and let's see what happens, you know?
Yeah.
And it's attacking like US based companies, infrastructure, and things like that. So very, very interesting. But what I would do, what I was doing was I would read like a couple of pages and then I would take a picture of the page, or like I'd take a picture of the page, I'd text it to her with like my scribble on the picture, like saying WTF or
Yeah.
like my little comments.
So let me ask you a question.
Yeah,
Let's imagine that um a let's say China, don't mean to pick on
okay,
China, but just for the sake of conversation,
sure.
because of where
Yeah,
they're geographically located,
yeah,
decides to send a nuclear warhead towards the United States. Okay.
okay.
What is your first thought? Do you think to yourself, oh, we'll just shoot it down? Because that's what I used to think. I
Yeah.
thought we
I
could
mean,
just
that
shoot
was,
them
I was gonna
down.
say that wasn't what I first thought.
Yeah.
But you're right, that that would have been my first thought in the past.
Yeah. Yeah. Um,
Honestly, you know what my first thought was?
but
Is it really from China?
that's a fair thought, by the way. You'll learn that in this book.
Oh,
But yeah,
okay.
but I thought we had this star missile thing that we had been working on all these years where we
Uh-huh.
could shoot things down,
Yeah.
but it turns out it doesn't work very well because if you have a bullet and then you have a bullet, so this bullet's going, and then you got to try to shoot this bullet with this bullet.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, that doesn't work out so well,
Yeah.
ever,
Right.
statistically speaking.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't really work. We just keep trying to develop it. Also,
Yeah.
when you send a missile, we don't, as humans, have the technology to turn it around. So once
Right.
it's launched. That's the end of that story.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Um,
and the movies, so science fiction movies, or not even science fiction movies, just movies in general, you know,
mhm, mhm.
they have lulled us into a false sense of technology, really, because we see these, you know, anti-missile aircrafts with anti-missile missiles, right?
Yeah,
And we're
exactly. Yeah.
thinking, oh yeah, so that stuff totally exists. And it's like, you have to remember, uh, and maybe an iteration of it exists, but it's not like what the movies show.
Right. No,
You
not
know,
at
like
all.
a lot of them are heat signatures. Like they're looking for specific heat signatures. Well, what if there's a friggin' bird that has the same heat signature? It's gonna go after the bird instead of the missile, you know? I mean, that's a very broad and inaccurate analogy, but I'm just saying, like, that's the kind of explanation that in my head I have to remind myself movies are not reality, even though they
They feel
lead
like
you
it
to
though.
believe, yeah, that that is the reality, but it's not.
Right. It's I can't stop thinking about it. Um, I was trying to look up. I think it's this book is all about the first like 20 minutes or something.
Okay.
I'm so sorry. Uh 72 minutes. The first 72
Oh,
minutes after the first missile launches.
okay. Okay.
So the whole book is just about 72 minutes.
That's insane. Okay.
And spoiler alert, at the end
You're
of
really
72,
selling the book, by the way.
yeah, spoiler alert, after 72 minutes, there is no humanity left.
There is no continuation. Yeah.
No,
I mean, I would have figured. Yeah.
yeah, it's crazy.
Man. Well, the last book I read, just to kind of go on a segue here, the last
Sure.
book I read was Project Hail Mary
Oh, what's
by
that?
Andy Weir. So
Okay.
it's a fiction book. You know, it's the same author that wrote
So
The
is this. This
Martian.
is fiction too. Okay, not really.
Yeah. But it's the same author that wrote The Martian, which the movie is based off of. I don't know if you
Okay.
watched the Matt Damon
I
movie,
feel like
The
I did.
Martian.
I think I did.
Like
I feel like I
his name
did.
is Mark Watney. He gets stuck on Mars by
Yes.
himself.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So the book Project Hail Mary is the same author, and it's the same kind of humor. And like it is so interesting. As I'm reading it, I forget that it's a fiction story because like I'm reading it as if, oh, this is like this science is real. This global concern is real. The science behind it, like the scientific reasonings are real. Like I'm reading it and I'm
Yeah.
just accepting it like, yeah, no, this is totally legit. But it's a
Yeah.
sci-fi book, you know? And I'm like,
Well, I
oh,
mean, a lot of it's based in either reality or potential reality.
yeah.
You
Well,
know.
and that's what makes things like, you know, Star Trek so interesting is
Right.
because like there's a whole like cult following of people who have shown like they've shown the direct links between things shown in Star Trek and like technology and reality now.
Mm,
It's like, look,
mm.
Star Trek talked about this back in the 60s, and then look at us now in the 2020s.
Yeah. So, I'm starving because I
Okay.
waited to have lunch. I haven't had lunch yet. Um,
Okay.
yeah. So I should probably go do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Go eat and then we'll continue this type of conversation because I think the CrowdStrike thing is a very interesting, intriguing current event that, you know, staying on
Yeah.
top of it and just kind of going through the discussion of like how it is affecting everything, not just in the US, but worldwide. Like, I think it's an important discussion to have. It's
I think
important
so.
to,
Yeah.
yeah,
I think there's so much right now with
yeah.
technology that's so important. Yeah.
Hmm. Okay, well,
Bye.
thanks for listening, everyone. We'll catch you next time.
Bye.
Do it.